So everybody, welcome to the session today. I want to say an absolutely huge thank you all for coming and getting involved. These sessions become really alive and worthwhile because of yourselves attending and getting stuck into the conversation. And an absolutely huge thank you to Rowena, who's reached out to us to donate her time, her knowledge and her expertise. It's amazing how much we've benefited from so many kind, generous, experienced and fantastic people with the RoRemote community, and we're having more people come and join the ranks, which is just wonderful to see. And without further ado, Rowena, I will hand over to you.
Good afternoon to everyone in Ireland, and hello from Zaragoza. Buenas tardes, buenos dias. My name is Rowena Hennigan, and I am originally from Galway. Hopefully the accent has survived. Just one of my pride and joy that I'm trying to keep. And my daughter here in Zaragoza with me, who has been more time in Spain than in Ireland, up Galway, up Mayo as well, half Mayo, half Galway. So I have to shout out to Rose, get that out there straight away, right? Mayo as well is very important. But my daughter, who's been here for almost 4 years, more than half her life in Spain, I am trying to keep her Irish accent when she speaks English, and anyone who's lived abroad with kids will know that that's quite challenging. So we often go through her repeating grand and how you multiple times, just trying to get the accent in. So it's a pleasure to be here today. I've known RoRemote for quite a while, since the start, probably around the start of when Rose and Tracy and Johnny and John Reardon, all the fabulous people involved there have been around, Renata as well. So fantastic work. And I have to commend particularly the Slack channel, which you'll see me lurking around on, and the fact that you can ask anything on there. So anyone who, we're covering well-being today, but just to do a little promo for RoRemote, Rose won't mind, I hope. Anyone who's going away with any other questions, use the community on the Slack channel. I've answered questions. People often, if it's anything out of the blue, use the community on there because it's a fantastic community, and it also gets you used to using Slack, which builds your digital skills and makes you comfortable on that platform by just getting to do. So I'm based in Zaragoza. I'm a remote work skills expert. I work with TU Dublin. I have been for many years. I was physically based in Dublin in Ireland, where my daughter was born. And due to her having severe asthma, we moved country to get dry weather to Spain. So my story in the remote work world is very, very personal. Back in 2000s, I started remote working with Avaya and Nortel down in Galway. And around that time, I started to travel a little bit and work remotely. At that point, I had no responsibilities, but I went, ooh, this traveling and working remote is fantastic. I love it. It's a bit different when you're forced into it. And that's what happened to me with a child with chronic asthma. I lent into, as a female with trying to have a career, a new parent, I lent into flexible working and remote work when I literally was getting no sleep with my daughter and trying to survive off being totally exhausted. So back about 5 years ago in Dublin, we couldn't take any more. And luckily, my husband is a remote worker as well. We got an opportunity here in Spain, and lock, stock, and 2 smoking barrels moved over to Zaragoza, took the big leap, and both of us are remote workers from here. Remote work enabled that for me. It enabled wherever I wanted to work, but it also meant that my daughter could find health, I could keep a career, and I could live my passion, which is now advocating and doing these types of sessions and making a living from my knowledge in remote work skills. So why well-being today? Well, I said to Rose after I introduced myself, what I was going to do is do 2 things and then go to the AMA. I'm going to show you the 3 things I have on hand around my workspace. And I am in a co-working, so this is not a posh office. I am in a co-working, full confession. Right? And I understand people will be joining, and I empathize because people will be joining from home working settings where maybe the situation is not ideal. I understand that because I experienced it in full lockdown in Spain. But now that I can choose to move, I have run like Roadrunner to my co-working, and I go there every day with a smile on my face, because for me to be away from where I try to live as well is very important in terms of where I work best, and that separation and boundaries between work and life. So the 3 things I want to point out around me that I always have work at home is my big water bottle with a top. So anyone on camera who wants to wave, way, top marks. filled up at least 2 or 3 times a day. I know John Reardon advocates for this. It didn't nick it off him, but it's a really simple thing. You keep hydrated, you top it up, and yes, you got to go pee-pee a lot, but it makes you move from your space. Okay, it makes you move from your space. And particularly I see glasses wearers and people with eyes as well. It's really good to keep hydrated through that water. So that's the first thing I always have on hand. I always have also, getting the steps into, thanks for that, whoever said that in chat, a selection of essential oil bottles and different types. This is peppermint for the afternoon, which I have in my little handy made bottle. And I have a mix here, a blend. Why oils? Why smells? Some people have tiger balm, love it, love it. Often when I say this, people say, well, I have things around me that smell as well. Some people have flowers, some people have plants that might smell in their workspaces. But just take a minute to notice what that smell might do in terms of setting a moment or a precedent for your work. So peppermint, which I lean on heavily, is great in the afternoons, and I sprayed this before my session. Here to give me that little bit of energy. Lots of recommendations coming through, but the last thing that I always have on hand is a pen and paper. Various different ones, right, of different varieties. I collect Post-its. I have lots of different ones, right? Notice if you start to use things like oils, the albus oil, the tiger balm, notice maybe what it helps you refresh, reset. When I use peppermint, I have energize or refresh that I have written down many times as I use it. So when you intentionally write as well after you spray, I'll do it here, and sniff deeply, so you get the full act played out with it. It makes that intention into your behavior, or it sets that intention that you are going to feel energized if you use it. So some of you are saying albus, some of you are saying tiger balm, etc. Great. So those 3 things are things that I always have around my workspace in terms of taking care of myself. And the water makes me take breaks. It makes me keep hydrated. It's a healthy, it works into the physical side, but also the ability to write around me and not only be on the various keyboards. I have 2, one up high and one down low, encourages me to reflect and write, and activates the neuroscience says it activates the part of the brain that helps me reflect as well. So again, you could all be great at writing, but what I've noticed is that if you can write, it really helps to embed any of those reflections, behaviors, observations. So water, something for the senses. Most people say the smell they love is coffee, but I'm trying to be good on the coffee in January. I don't know if anyone else is the same. So I'm down to 1 cup a day in the morning. But other things, explore other things for your senses, and the writing. So they're the 3 things that I often use day to day. And I have them around me, so they're handy. I also want to share with you what a day or 2 looks like for me in terms of my well-being and self-care, and then we'll go into the questions. So this morning I went swimming. It was quite early, 7:30. Now I have the luxury of going to a gym, which, by the way, my swimming practice had totally fallen off before COVID. I have embraced it with new gusto since I can get to that gym. So I was swimming 20, 25 minutes most day, and with the shower beforehand, get ready, the whole thing takes about 45 minutes, start to finish. I walk from my apartment to the pool, I get changed, shower, all the rest, about 45 minutes. That's my significant self-care every day. Significant, main chunk of an hour, whatever you want to call. Some of you are writing, decide. You'll be reflecting, maybe saying, well, I have a Pilates class, I have a morning walk, I have a whatever, fill in the gaps. So I have that. And what I'm going to share with everyone who attends today, and I'll give you the link, is that I'm going to share a template with you, which is everyone's going to get, which goes through significant main self-care, shorter self-care, shorter items of self-care, about 10, 15 minutes. Okay, we'll come on to that in a minute. And also, right, how we embed those self-cares into our behavior, but also what new things we can explore. So, or what we can tweak. So what I mean by that is, it could be that you've got your significant 40 minutes, 45 minutes that you do regularly. But you also then need to look at these smaller things. Why? So on a regular day, Rowena has her significant things. If she's got a particularly busy day, she might have her extra walk, short walk. She might have a read of a chapter of a book. She might have a little bit of coloring practice. So here's my mandala I've been working on with my daughter. I got finished last night. That she does for 10 or 15 minutes, consciously calling out and writing down those things, those smaller things as well that take 10 or 15 minutes, or even 5 minutes, whatever works for you. I've heard a couple of people say that they burn essential oils, for example, in a diffuser, and they sit to let the oil fill the room, which takes 5 minutes, their work room. So you'll see what I'm doing here. I'm asking and suggesting and inviting you to explore those shorter self-care. And maybe you're getting some ideas that you're going, well, I like what Rowena said. I might try that new one she said about X, or about the drawing, or about the smells. So you're all going to get a template that you can complete in your own time with some prompts on it. So that's what I do on a good day. But we're in the middle of a pandemic, guys. Let's get real. Okay, some of you are homeschooling. I've got a daughter that might be sick, school is cancelled. We had school cancelled a couple of weeks ago because of snow. The general stress of COVID is all around us. So you have a crap day. So what is the crap day for Rowena? What's the plan B, or C, or D? Well, it's going back to this list, I have to be honest with you, and doing at least one small thing that I can do. And if you don't have the list, if you don't have the view of the different things, the bigger, the smaller, the variety, the easy to tap into, the 5 minutes before you go to bed where you smell some lavender with intent and take some breaths. If you don't have the plan B and those things designed out, you won't lean in when you need the plan B for the supports, when everything hits the fan. So that's what I wanted to paint, the good day, because we all have them, and the day where it doesn't work, because well-being has to be integrated into our routines for the good times and for the bad times or the bad days. And that's why I've taken you through those two examples. I'm human too. There are days when it's crap. I'll share with you that there was one day that was particularly crap a couple of weeks ago, and my reflective writing turned into a naughty scribble that looked like the pen would rip through the paper. But the fact that I sat down and did it, and I knew that I could sit with my pen and my piece of paper, was because I had planned out those different types of activities that could support me. So that's enough from me. I'm going to have a quick check on the chat. Please get ready to ask your questions, and I will do my damnedest to answer them. Come on, audio. Rose, is that okay?
Rowena, thank you so very much for that. And I'm here nodding frantically. I have written up, so I've cleared my office a lot. There was a lot of like the whiteboard sheets because it's not quite big enough in here for a whiteboard itself. And I've written up pieces around, like, you know, to do with planning for RoRemote and whatnot. But up here I have my whys and what I enjoy. And part of the reason I wrote it is for those stressful days that I forget that picking the phone up to a friend, or swimming and reading, or date night, or walks in the woods, or, you know, that those are things that I can turn to. So when I'm not feeling particularly good, I can look up and go, I just need to pick up the phone to Sinead.
Thanks. And Rose, we didn't set that up beforehand. Sure, we didn't.
No.
That's wonderful that you've got this brilliant example of in practice. And the fact that it's in front of you near your workspace, that you can rely on it, that the list is there. Love it.
Marie Quinn's asking, do you have any easy recommendations that organizations can apply to help remote workers?
Great question, Marie. Thanks for that. So that openness that I've shared, I've been working with companies and teams that have these kind of conversations, that we're seeing it in some of the social media, some of the promo that's come out around coping with the pandemic. And someone earlier said the walking meetings or the steps, right? So let's refer back to that first. I've seen in practice where we've got the walking meetings or the audio meetings, walkabout meetings. One big corporate in Europe brought that in calendar wide at a certain time of the day. I think it was a Thursday across the whole of Europe. So within their organizational calendar, you could not book a meeting that was not an audio walking meeting. I mean, obviously weather allowing, but the idea was to reduce Zoom fatigue and to encourage people to get out and walk. Within that as well, Marie, you could have the steps challenges and you put in step challenges. So there are some practical in vogue things at the moment that you may have heard of that I've seen working. But also, guys, see what I've just done there? If you're a leader for an organization, why don't you start off a social chat call, not about work, where you present what you lean on for self-care, how you switch off, what your downtime is. With some great suggestions in the chat that you might use incense in the evenings, or a particular type of thing, that you use olive oil, tiger balm, that you rely on getting your steps in as your support for your well-being. So you don't even have to be a leader. You can be an advocate in this space by sharing and creating non-work chats like this, where you invite the rest of your team or close colleagues to also share, right? And see what happens when we share. So I'll give you an example. Rose just shared what she does. Imagine Rose and I are working on another project in a couple of weeks' time, and Rose is having a bad day. In that few minutes already in this call, if Rose says to me, I'm having a bad day, Rose, have you looked at your list? Is there anything on your list that will help you feel better? Rose then might, in terms of role play, come back and say, that helps, Rowena. Thanks for reminding me about that. Have you done any mandalas recently with your daughter? Okay. So Marie, I hope that answers your question. So we've got the kind of bigger initiatives, but also based on this self-care downtime, what we do to support ourselves, we can move to having more conscious and useful conversation in these virtual spaces where we share our experiences, and then move those conversations along to understanding each other better and maybe supporting each other better.
Love that. Absolutely love that. So going to be using that in the future. Thank you so much. Lorna is asking now, do you have a morning ritual for when you wake up, or end of work day ritual? And could you give us some ideas?
Oh, thanks for that, Lorna. And yeah, I actually hinted at it with the swimming, but of course, some days the gyms have been closed here as well. So for me, getting out for a walk, and I know you can all, again, it's one of the buzzy things that's come out of the pandemic, mimic the commute, we hear people saying, where you get up and you walk around and you go out and you do your loop or you do your 20 minutes. I really find personally, I need to get outside at the start of the day. And I think with our increased time inside, we all need it. Now, what if we can't get out? Kids hanging off us, terrible weather, whatever. We can all get to a window. We can all do it now if you want, if you have a window near you and you're into it. But have you really looked up and looked out for vista and perspective? There's something about posture as well that's really important. And I think when we used to commute, we would get up and get ready to get on the Lewis, get in our car. We were up, we were dressed, we were present, we were awake, we were full of energy. If you can't get outside, try even saying, I can't get outside to yourself. What can I do? I know some people find standing in the window with the windows open, the terrace, that worked for me during lockdown. But standing and really looking up and really getting that air and light. So I'm trying to support you if you can't get out. I'm sharing my morning ritual that I need to get out. So I'm trying to support you if you can't. Okay, that works for me. Music works for me in the mornings as well, and radio. I have a couple of radio stations I listen to, and I notice as well that they kind of warm me up into the day. And I know a lot of people in Ireland will listen to talk radio, etc. So it's doing those things to wake yourself up. One other comment on that, and it's back to posture. And there's hopefully some people who like yoga or know what I'm talking about. We do a sun salutation for a reason. We do that whole opening up for a reason. So if there's nothing else that I'm saying here that attracts you, just even think about what you can do stretching wise. If you can't get to a window, if you're in a small apartment, etc., and have very little access to light. So for me, what I've discovered is I need those things. What works for you, right? And we're back to the writing. That's just me, okay? Everything, everyone is different. So what works for you? And don't underestimate the power of a little bit of reflection and intention, so that when you're planning on a Friday or on a Monday for your week, just say, I'm going to try 3 days or I do stand on the terrace, or I do stand at the window and I take 10 meaningful breaths and I stretch, for example. And then notice the benefits. I am a glass half full girl. I'm suggesting that if you notice the benefits, you'll notice the benefits and write them down, because we need light. We need an open posture. We're humans. We were born to be walking up straight. And if you're asking if this is resonating with you, you're probably missing the commute and you're maybe finding mornings difficult. Okay, so hopefully that helps.
That's wonderful. And Marie Quinn actually was reflecting what you were saying there, where she was suggesting as well, try taking your mid-morning coffee to the back door and open it for a few minutes. And actually I do that occasionally. But I find this whole, I love what you said, Rowena, about like finding what works for you, because I think there's a lot of narrative out there about this is the ideal morning. And look, it's no, because we're all different and our circumstances are different and what works for us is different. I'm an introvert, even though I'm a social introvert. So I like my own company, but there's all these different things that work for us. And I think it's so important to find the piece that does work for you. And I absolutely, like those days I'm not writing something down, I definitely notice the difference in myself. We have now, Paula has said, I work with a number of senior executives who would be slightly skeptical about oils and drawing. How would you convince them to subtly make changes?
So if you know your executives, Paula, and I'm hoping you do, and I'm hoping you have a pen there, and you're going to write down the 3 common themes. And I've dealt with a lot of C-suite and senior execs. So I normally find I can discover 3 things of similar interest. So I'll give you some examples. It's a bit of a generalization, Irish people, but please don't. Gaelic football, rugby, and maybe Irish music, if I was dealing with a group of senior execs, right? We're looking for common ground. So if they're skeptical about the oils and the drawings, bring it to how they switch off and what they use to enjoy in their community, customized to them. So if we take rugby, reflecting on rugby games, reflecting on maybe the GA organizations in their community, right? Follow me now for a minute here. I'm going to take you on a journey. Music, maybe gigs, right? So what we want to do is then extend that out and find out what they have in their interests. So what happens if we're assuming that they will want to be on a non-work type of call, you bring in those common themes, and you often find when you dig a bit and open it up, that you might have an exec saying, and I've experienced this quite a lot, well, I listened to the podcast on GA to switch off. And another fella might say, well, I've collected concert tickets for Aslan since they started. Or I have every concert ticket from when I went to the O2 or whatever, right? So what you do is you go along their themes and you ask them then what they lean into to give them good memories or enjoying switching off what they do. And as you do that, you'll find as well that they will start to share, they'll start to share things of common. So you start on a common ground with them. Paul, I hope this helps. And then you move in to those things, right? So I'm going to lean in a little bit as well to sparking memories. And we all need that at the moment because we've been maybe so restricted or our worlds have gotten smaller. So sometimes just discussing what they enjoyed pre-COVID can help to move that along. And most people I've encountered, if they're a GA head, for example, will have GA interests along the line. They'll still be doing things GA-wise. They might be listening to GA podcasts, as I said, or watching shows or doing whatever involved virtually in their community organizations. And that, for a lot of people, can fall into the self-care. That's what they do to relax, to contribute to the community. So when you start there, you can start then to build a conversation. So what I find when there might be a little bit of hesitation is to use common themes, cultural themes in these groups. And for me, that has worked. And then all it'll take is one gentleman or woman saying, but actually, I also have a stretch band here in my workspace that I use. And you'll suddenly get them all saying, well, I have a stretch ball. I actually had someone, I have it here. I actually had someone the other day who was telling me they had a big ball of blue tack from their kids that they were using to de-stress beside their desk. So people will start to open up, and building on that conversation, whether it's about oils or incense or whatever, it's just finding that common ground to start the conversation. And also, Paula, lastly, to say, maybe to do it gently, build it up over a few sessions of non-work chat. So take them along, maybe to start talking about one common theme and open it up further. So hopefully that helps.
Love that, Rowena. And one of the things I was thinking about was I got to go to the Wisdom 2.0 event years ago in Dublin, and they were talking about trying to present mindfulness again into the executive end of things and the benefits of it, and being able to speak to research that's been done. Or it might be like, you know, oh, I read this really interesting article and it turns out that, you know, compassionate workplaces are more successful, and, you know, actually their bottom lines are better. So again, it's like maybe speak to what is
exactly,
it's a safe space for them to kind of talk about it. And
exactly. And the thing is that, I mean, that's for Paula there if she wants that as well. That's a fantastic article. And can I say that don't be put off by serious leaders. I'm not so crazy on. I think serious advocates, anyone serious about their profession and their work-life integration or balance needs some element of self-care. That's a really good article coming from HBR that might help you also, Paula, phrase how you approach self-care, because we're talking about self-care and what we lean into, but there is a bit of, in some senior leader groups, there is a bit of a bad press there on that. And that when they think of self-care, or they think of burning a candle, right? But self-care is your morning ritual where you go for your walk. Self-care is your social chat with your team where you don't talk about work. Self-care can be time spent with your puppy dog. Self-care can be watering your plants. It's so different to everyone. And I think the term can be a bit limiting language-wise. So.
That's great, Rowena. Thank you so much. And please do keep the questions coming in, everyone. Lorna is saying, I'm working from my bedroom at the moment. How do you suggest maintaining a mental boundary between your work and relaxation space? Great question, Lorna.
Oh God, that is such a good one. So if you're notice when you walk in the door to your bedroom, as in that's the door out into the communal area, right? Because it's where you're coming into your work and it's where you're coming into your bedroom. So if you're coming in to go to sleep, try and set the intention that you're going to go to sleep. Sounds really obvious, okay? And lighting is really important because you're trying to use the workspace for working and then the space as well for sleeping in. So what I found and what people have fed back, and you've probably heard some of these things, packing away the computer into a box, putting it away. So one person I spoke to a few weeks ago, lucky her, had this wheelie table that she could wheel her whole computer into a cupboard in her room. Out of sight, out of mind. Cover with the tablecloth is another idea. Okay. So there's some ideas, but also come out of your workspace, particularly before bedtime. So a lot of people say, well, I can't switch off, but I haven't been out of my workspace. So go out into the communal area, read for a while, do whatever, make your dinner, do whatever, and then come back in with the lights changed. So what we're looking at is just demarcating those different times of the day, whether it's sleep, whether it's work. Then the other thing I would say, and I mentioned the door, and you know I'm a big fan of writing, but what people are finding is because they're not getting outside maybe so much and they're using the one space a lot, like a bedroom. If you're, so following that on, Lorna, if you're finding you're working too much, right? Either on your door or near your computer when you've covered it, maybe put a little notepad which logs your hours. And even if you said to yourself, I'm going to log on now. Now, I described this to someone the other day and they said they're like those bathroom cleaning lists where they've got the little tick, right? And I had a good laugh, right? Because I didn't think of it like that. But it's like if you were going into work in the olden days, I used to work in Dunnes Stores. We had to sign in, by the way, back in the 80s. But if you were signing in, if you sign in on a sheet near your computer or in your space, you really actually notice that you're going to go to work. And that can be good for two reasons: keeping track of overworking, but also, again, setting that different space between the two things. And I think Lorna also asked earlier, that's linked into breaking those boundaries. And I mentioned that if you're coming out of the work sleep space at night and you're trying to go back into your real life, also work in things like having a shower, having another walk, doing some stretching, to separate out, to have those things you know means you're moving from work into your real life. I mean, guys, it's difficult at the moment. So, there are some ideas. If you're still struggling, notice you're struggling. It's okay, right, to realize and write down and go, this is not easy. Confide in someone, reach out, because there's a lot of people out there that are struggling with those spaces being mixed. So, the other piece of advice, of all of what you're listening to and you're saying, oh man, like, oh God, that's all great, but I don't have the space for that, or none of that. I've tried all that and it doesn't work. What about simply some self-kindness to yourself and saying, no wonder, it's so difficult. And sometimes when we do that, we can move on and feel a bit better when we've shown ourselves a little bit of self-empathy.
Oh, that so needs to be said. And like, and when you know something, but you need to be reminded of it. So as you're saying that, and Lorna, I'm I'm lucky I have a space, but like I do find even to get out of the little office as well. And then sometimes to remind that it's, I am having a tough day, and that's okay. I listened to the book Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach over the Christmas, and it's on my list of one of those books I'm just going to touch on from every 6 months or once a year, because I feel like it's one that you couldn't listen to too many times. So important. Linda has very kindly shared some of her practice. So she said, one of the things I do to relax, mainly weekends rather than during the week, is to walk along the Liffey with the 5K and watch and listen and notice how many different birds I see and hear each time. So she's been mindful in her environment, and it's really helped. And something for me is, I think sometimes I've underestimated, I think I had this sense where I needed to be, like, I'm smart and, I'm 40 years of age now. Of course I'd know what to do to mind myself. But it's very often in speaking to others, like a session like this, reading stuff, that I've been inspired and gone, oh gosh, you know what, I should try that. So I'm smiling about the blue tack. My sister's youngest has a beautiful temper on him, and has done some work with somebody, and she recommended these gel balls that he puts his hands into, and it's helped an amazing amount. So he's been at this for the last 2 years. And then I was thinking, gosh, if he's getting benefit from that tactile stuff, maybe I would. And I bought some of the kinetic sand. I don't have kids, but there's a tray down in my kitchen with this kinetic sand on it. And I could go days without going near it. And then every so often I'll mush my hands into it, or I'll make a couple of sand castles. And it might only be a minute or two, and it helps me a huge amount. So everybody sharing their ideas, it is really, really beneficial. And I think it can spark something, and it can remind us that we need to take care of ourselves.
Exactly. But can I just say that you've made the point there, you realized your kinetic sand is such a good help, Rose. Try really writing that down and reminding yourself of that, and sitting with the positive that you have that to lean on. People have said incense and a candle to wind down. I didn't miss the person who said, I take my coffee by the back door and I really switch off and look outside. The Liffey walk, Linda, thank you so much. Lorna shared some stuff. Guys, write it down and congratulate yourselves. You've started figuring out what works for you. There's so much negativity in the world at the moment. They are the things that you can lean into. And did you think that I thought, like a year ago, when I've been on a session going, this simple mandala drawing, got me over a bad day last week or whatever. This is what we need to share. It's the reality now that we're all living through. And those little things you share, sharing that you're using the albus oil, sharing that you're using, when you take your coffee, I have to highlight this one, it's away from the desk. Okay? So many people I meet and speak are drinking their coffee and tea at the desk. When I'm working for 2 big insurance companies, when I ask, are you being monitored? Are you being tracked? Do you have to be at the... No. So why are you sitting at the desk drinking your coffee when you are in your house, and you could go and sit in the garden if it's a dry day, if you have a garden, or you could go and sit in a different space? Isn't it interesting that, yes, some of us may be limited, but we do have some choice, and the computer sucks us in and stops us moving away from our desks. So lots of you are doing really good work. Please keep building on it. Please keep sharing with your communities. And then just notice, give yourself that. Have your coffee that you have once or twice a day away from the desk. Simple thing, but can really matter day to day. I'm seeing another question, am I? I think so. I'm just trying to read it there, Rose. Do you want
So Donna's actually sharing one of the things that's working really well for her, and she said a wonderful way to stay healthy for me is to practice the word no and enough. Also, not now, and can you pass that to somebody else? I say these a lot more as I get older, and I have to say that's something I'm loving about gaining years, is just getting more comfortable and understanding that, like, you know, it's not a bad thing to be able to say, I'm afraid not, or can you wait till later, or give me some time.
Wonderful. And I love also, Donna, I also drink my tea outside in the garden with my shoes off. Now, I didn't set this one up either, Rose. I haven't met Donna. Donna, and if you're brave enough, come on audio. Would you be able to describe how wonderful grass feels on bare feet, and give us all a pep if you're brave enough, Donna, because that's one of my favorite things to experience. A bit like the sand that Rose was saying when she's got her tray. We're tactile people and we're missing it. But that example, if John's maybe not brave enough, but picture it all of us picture for a minute. Doesn't grass feel amazing on bare feet? So does sand. But Donna's got that where she, you know, she can lean into that because that really perks her up. Jennifer has also shared wonderful, I think that's a resource, is it into a meditation, some sort of meditation site? Thanks for that, Jennifer. That's wonderful. Exactly. Again, when you're feeling overwhelmed, so see what Jennifer is saying there. She knows what her little supports are. And that's why when I presented so honestly at the start, I didn't go, I'm Rowena, that's perfect, that's swimming, and that's teaching on this. And guys, I have crap days too. I have moments where I have to make the blue tack into a knot. I have moments where I sit to write and it becomes a scribble and a big, horrible, a psychologist might assess it and say, that's not good what you've done there, right? And, but then I look to what are the little things that I can do. We've touched into it a little bit, and Jennifer has on the meditation, and it's been raised, so I'm going to say it. There's a lot of still resistance around mindfulness, around, you know, incense, around all these words where people say, oh, it's hippie, it's this, it's that. Guys, it's whatever works for you. It doesn't have to be. So let's all try and work to get rid of that sort of jump to conclusion, oh, that's hippie rubbish. Because I know that some people, for example, just love listening to an album start to finish. Right? When was the last time you did that? Your favorite, or 3 or 4 songs from your favorite part of an album, where you just sit and listen to it. The people who like the mindful walking, that can help as well. All those senses. And I want to draw in terms of remote work skills. I'm going to go a little bit, not totally theoretical for a minute, but what we're missing in terms of the office and human connection. So think about if you went to a gig, if you went to Marley Park, or if you went to O2, and loads of your mates went, or if you went to a sporting event, or if you went to some theatre, you would come in and share that with your colleague the next day at work or the following Monday. They'd see your face, your visual, like, you know, your hands going. You might pull out the merchandise you bought that was more expensive than the concert ticket. You might have all the stories about going to a pub and suddenly Bruce Springsteen was there. All the rest of it, right? The typical Irish story. We share that with people's eyes, their experiences, their senses. We don't have that in the virtual world. So if someone has the joy and the compassion to share with you that they like to walk on grass in bare feet, join them for a minute in that moment and ask why. How does it feel? Where do you do it in your garden? Why do you do that? What does it do for you? How does it support you? And suddenly we're filling the gaps from the physical to the virtual. We're trying to really be in that moment with them. And that is what I've noticed we need to be more intentional in doing. Hopefully that makes sense to people as well. Asking why, what did it smell like? What did it feel like? What did you do after? How does it support you? Those open questions.
Love that. And like, oh my gosh, I so want to go out and walk on the grass now. My feet would be frozen. I didn't go down the banana bread route because me and carbs are not very good friends, but I definitely did hop on one of the other bandwagons last summer, and that was sea swimming. And like I used to do a little bit of windsurfing and kayaking, and I was never very good at it, but it just ended up working out so beautifully. And okay, I don't know how soon in the year I'll get back out, but I can understand. It's that feeling. It was the, you know, there's no thinking about everything else when it's so cold, but it's actually lovely after the first 7 minutes I find it takes me. And been sharing that with other people has just been magical. Do we have any more questions?
So I've popped in a link there where you can register on my website to get the self-care template that will take you through the different, at home, you can do it yourself. You can print it out or you can download it and go through those different ones. I also have a family one or group one. So I want to mention that, which I'm happily share to people as well once you come in. So that one, what we were thinking on that one, and I've been developing that out over these last few weeks, is that if you're communal living at the moment, or even I see some people with kids on, that you could do this together. You could talk about, when you go through these things, the self-care things you like to do, the walking on the grass. Maybe someone else will come out and walk with you on the grass in your household, and I know that my little person would happily do that. That you might find that the mandala drawing, we did this at home, so I completed it at home, and then we've got a weekly planner. And do you know what, it was interesting actually that happened to me when I went through it, and the learning for me was when I shared with my husband and got him to do his, how we then understood each other's supports better by spending conscious time discussing it. So that if I went, I have to go to the bedroom to read that chapter of the book at the end of the day, that he got that I had to go to the bedroom and read the chapter of the book, because we'd already discussed that was one of my short self-care supports, and that took 10-15 minutes, and that gave, it was out there, it was public knowledge in the house, in the flat, and that I could go off and do that. So I'll also send that out if there's anyone living in a group, so just let me know, or I'll email you once I get through the registrations. I love vitamin C on RTE, is worth watching. Thanks, Breda. I've heard about that as well. I think, Rose, you have. I heard about that one. Yeah, sea swimming is huge in Galway, so loads of my friends are doing it. It's fierce cool at the moment, the fierce in thing to do. So it's great to see that being taken up. So I don't see any other questions. If anybody has any other questions, I'm happy to take them or pop them in chat. I'm happy to take them. I'll take them in. I thanks, Jennifer. Connect on LinkedIn as well. Oh, someone share. Yeah. Oh, someone's sharing about crochet. Yeah, exactly. I actually crochet as well. It's a really good thing to do, to switch off. I've been mending a lot as well. Anyone listening who's not too crafty, but just like sewing patches onto old pairs of jeans, anything like that, which is maybe a bit more accessible if you can just do a bit of basic sewing. But Louise, just what you say, crochet is really good. I came across an Irish company actually that's working in the healthcare sector, sharing for Paula and Marie that are on, that brought out a crochet pattern for their workers as part of a self-care initiative. So I've just remembered this one. So they work in healthcare, and I see if I can find it if you want to contact me for it as well. I have the crochet pattern, which was a nurse with a little nurse that you knitted or crocheted. They gave away the pattern to their staff with a little flag that said hero on it. And what they did was they were acknowledging on their internal channels anyone who knitted one or anyone who gifted one. Now, isn't that an interesting way of saying thanks to our healthcare? Yeah, Louise, I'll share that with you. I have it. I'll share it with you. Isn't that an amazing way to keep up also sort of group motivation, and also to support our healthcare workers by encouraging people to do a bit of knitting or crochet. I think it was a knitting pattern, maybe not crochet, but I have it on file. And that's another idea of some of these initiatives that we can look at that are also saying, guys, go and do some crochet, go and do some knitting. We're saying it to you. We know these things help you relax and disconnect and unwind. So it's a really good one as well. So I'll share that with anyone who emails me. Anything else I've missed, Rose, there, questions wise? I don't think so.
Oh, Renata just saying we're all knitting one square and we'll put it all together at the end, connected though
Oh,
apart. Oh,
oh,
Renata, that's fabulous.
I love that, Renata. That's so cute. Maybe we could. Maybe we could. Whenever I think of all those knitting squares together, I always think as well of that beautiful image of Ireland. I'll see if I can find it and we can share it on one of the Slack channels, Rose. Do you know the one I mean of the fields that look like they're all knitted? There's a textile art, a famous one. Does anybody know the one I mean? I'll see if I can find it. And it always reminds me of home with all the fields. Because if you look from, especially across the Aran Islands, it looks like they've been knitted together. The fields are beautiful. Amazing, Renata. Thanks for that. And Louise, your sister's a nurse. I'm going to look for that for you. So definitely register on the site. And Rose sanded a coffee table and varnished it over the weekend. Wow.
My dad's a painter decorator, so I have a little bit of experience.
Thanks, Nasa, as well for your kind words. And thanks for the feedback, everyone. Yeah, so reach out on LinkedIn, reach out to me directly. I'm happy to give back to the community. What I'll do though, and this is an asynchronous comms thing, not to get too technical, is I'm going to share everything on the Slack channel on RoRemote as well. If you can hit me directly, fine. But if that's okay, Rose, I'll share them in the thread from the chat, from the event. So I'll share all the links. I'll share where you can register, the template, the knitting pattern, etc., that lovely article on self-care for leaders, and the family template as well for self-care. And the reason we do that in the remote world is that we're sharing with everyone. So even if they've missed the session or can't make time for the recording, they can access it there. But do feel free to email me as well. Someone's saying they were late joining, no problem. And in all sincerity, assuming you're all on the RoRemote Slack, so hopefully you are, I am happy to take direct questions there as well. So that's my contribution back to the community. So don't be shy. If you want to ask something you think of afterwards, doing nothing is an art in itself. I love that, Don. I've just seen that. That is so true. The art, the power of nothing was one keynote I've done recently at a big event. And it was about that, just sitting, doing nothing, and how often we find the solutions to problems in that space. Isn't that so true? So you are fantastic at that, Donna, and thank you for highlighting it. Sitting without an intention to do anything can be just as important. But yeah, reach out directly on the Slack and I'll answer any questions. And I'll hang on here as well, so to see if there's any last questions coming through. Thanks for all your positive feedback.
Absolutely. And Rowena, like I'm saying thank you, but it just doesn't quite cover it. And again, thank you to everybody for attending. I know some people got in a little bit later. Mary Teresa, great to see you again. Mary Teresa's just been doing the remote work ready course and has absolutely gotten stuck into that. I'll reiterate, for me, over the last so many years, other people sharing their journeys, their struggles and what's worked for them or what hasn't has helped me hugely. So, you know, you might think, oh, somebody else has more experience than me, but it doesn't matter. It's us as human beings sharing and sharing this journey together. If you're not already on our Slack, again, just if anybody's not quite familiar what Slack is, it's a communication platform, as Rowena was saying earlier. It's very commonly used in a lot of remote teams. One of the great things being able to use in RoRemote is that it gives you a chance to kind of figure out what it's like, that if ever you were going for a remote job or your team were going to suddenly use it, that you have some experience there as well. We have a coffee every Tuesday, a virtual coffee at 3 p.m. GMT. And you'll find the link for that either to be shared in our Facebook group or in the Slack group. It's a very informal, lovely chat. Some weeks we talk about professional development stuff, and we might actually be sensible and talk about your LinkedIn, but more often it's fun stuff. It's what are you reading, what are you watching? And for anybody who is of a certain generation or knows some Irish advertising, John Atkinson was telling us about taking the horse to France last summer. There was a Kerrygold ad years ago about taking the horse to France, and we had a great laugh about that. It's a lovely place as well. You will meet a group of people, some current remote workers or leaders, people who are looking, who are on the hunt for a job, and then we have a lot of community development people, because a lot of us within RoRemote, what we want to do is bring the benefits of remote working to our communities and to individuals. So if that's something that sparks your interest as well, please do come and find us. And to join the Slack, Tara's just asked me that about joining the Slack. If you go to growremote.ie, you'll see the link there. If you're looking for the Facebook group, you search for RoRemote and you'll find the community there. The Facebook group's a little bit more fun and silly. We share GIFs and pictures. The Slack does get a little bit more into the in-depth of what remote working is about. There's actually, just this week, we went over the 2000 mark as membership. And again, the big thing for us, as Rowena was saying there, we share information. So it's asynchronous. That might be a new term for some people. That is not in real time. We share the information again so more people can benefit it. We try and share as much information publicly as possible. When we're asking questions and it's appropriate, we ask in public as well, because somebody else might have wanted to ask that question, maybe didn't know how to approach it or didn't feel maybe comfortable enough. And if you're the one that asked the question, I think that's a real gift to somebody else. And then, you know, the community gets to come together and answer each other's questions and help each other out. Rowena, would you like to leave us with something?
No, just to highlight what you said, that if you share with someone, and I hinted at it in some of the pieces I was sharing myself, if you share with your husband, your partner, your friend, your flatmate, someone on the end of a phone line, your intention to improve your self-care, mind yourself with a few more breaks, do a little bit more walking in the morning, sometimes they can be your backup as well. They can be the one to remind you. It plants that seed of accountability. So maybe as I'm saying that, check in with yourself. If there's a good habit you want to try and build on in these coming weeks, who would support you in that? And maybe write that down. Often many of us can think of can think of someone that might support. Oh, one of my friends wants to do a little bit more yoga, or one of my cousins is into taking better breaks during the day from work because he or she has said. And then reach out to them and said, will you be my little buddy on this? Okay. So we have it sometimes in our social circle, in our family circle. Sometimes we have to reach a bit further, but it's valuable. And in these times, it also helps us find a connection with someone, a common ground. And that would be the last thing I would say, Rose. You kind of said it there earlier as well about some of your intentions, and I'm sharing it. But it's just, if people are coming away feeling motivated, build on that so that they have a support there.
Thank you. I think that's a beautiful one to finish on. Thank you so much. Again, I'm trying to will the feeling behind my thank you to you, Rowena, to everybody else who's attended today. To anybody maybe who's watching this back again, come and get involved in the community. I look forward to getting to know more of you, seeing you over the coming months when it's possible again for us to meet in person. Our chapters are going to be out there organising events. Maybe you'll be part of that as well, getting people together for a coffee, for a talk, for a walk, for whatever it is. I'm very excited for what we're going to be able to do this year. It's been a gift to me to be able to be involved in this community because it's helped me a lot. And you can definitely see, like, being able to help others helps you, and then it helps others, and it just, you know, it's the virtuous circle, which is absolutely wonderful. Thanks a million. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll talk to you all soon.